the #1 way to easily flush your power steering fluid. My name is Jimmy, you're watching One Road, and if you'll let me, I'm going to show you the #1 way I've found to flush my power steering fluid without running the engine. Today, in the shop, we'll be working on this 2005 GMC ENVOY. I recently uploaded a video to this channel, linked below, where I performed a full power steering fluid flush on my 2003 Chevrolet Suburban. Now, the awesome thing about that was I didn't have to turn the engine on at all. I was able to flush the entire system just by turning the steering wheel lock to lock. Now, this ENVOY, it has a little bit different of a steering system. It's got what's called rack and pinion. So we are going to attempt to do the same thing. For the fluid, we're going to be using this LubeGuard synthetic power steering fluid. It's a little bit expensive, so I would say use what the manufacturer recommends for your vehicle. As for the tools you'll need a drain bucket, a longer length of hose. Mine is about 10 feet. You're also going to need one of these brass fittings you see here, as well as a hose clamp and something to block off the return nipple on the power steering fluid reservoir. In this case, I just took a piece of the tubing, wrapped it over on itself, and I'll use this to plug up the nipple on the power steering fluid reservoir. Depending on your car, you're going to need an assortment of pliers, possibly a flathead screwdriver, or a socket set for the hose clamps. Once you open your hood, you're going to want to slowly start inspecting things. Just look around and look for a cap that quite possibly has a steering wheel logo on it, just like this one. Now that we've found this, we know that that is our power steering fluid reservoir, and we also know that that's attached to the power steering pump. So this is where we're going to be working today. Just below the power steering fluid reservoir on the back, if you look down, you'll see a hose and a hose clamp that leads up to the bottom of the reservoir. Now that hose is the return line, and we know since they use a standard spring type hose clamp that this is a low pressure line. So this will be our return. Okay, now that we've established what types of tools we're going to need, and we've established where our power steering pump is, the power steering fluid reservoir, and the return line, the first thing we're going to need to do is jack up the front of the car and put it up on jack stands. Okay, so the intent here is to just raise the wheels off of the ground. We are good. As you can see, both wheels are off the ground. This allows us to turn the steering wheel from lock to lock without any restrictions so that we can easily pump all of the old power steering fluid through the system and out into the catch pan. The next step is really just to get started. I'm gonna grab my needle nose pliers and try to get down there on that hose clamp and try to loosen it enough to take off that hose. But you're gonna have to do some tricky finger work here because you're gonna have to plug up the nipple on that power steering fluid reservoir before it all starts leaking out. So I'm gonna have my plug ready to go so I can simply remove the hose and slide the plug onto the nipple. Looking down here, there's not much room. So just take your time, make a plan, figure out how you wanna get this done. I've switched off to this 90-degree pair of needle nose pliers. These little guys are very handy. I'll put a link down in the description below this video for these things. You can now see in the center of the screen this return line that we have disconnected from the reservoir. That's where this brass fitting comes in. This fitting is going to go right into that return line. What's great about this fitting is because of these ridges here, it actually seals itself really good. So you don't need to use a hose clamp or anything like that. Just push this in. Here you can see the return line with my brass fitting going into the clear tubing. We have hose clamps on all of it just to make sure nothing comes undone while we're turning the steering wheel. If you take a look inside this passenger side wheel well, you'll see how I chose to run the clear tubing. And we're gonna go ahead and grab the end of it and put it right here in our drain bucket. Now, you might have to clamp this onto the side of this so it doesn't move. As an overview, let's take a look at the whole system. Here inside the engine compartment, you can see the power steering fluid reservoir. Behind that, you can see our return line that is now attached to our clear drain line. That drain line is being fed down through the engine compartment into this passenger side wheel well and out into this drain bucket. We have a set of locking pliers there to keep the line in the bucket. Now that we're all set up, let's go ahead and look at the condition of our current fluid. Wow. You can see just how black this stuff is. That does not look good, and I want to get this stuff changed immediately. All right, guys, we have the whole thing set up and ready to go. All I'm going to do now is jump in the car and turn the wheel from lock to lock. Because the wheels are off the ground, there's no pressure, and the steering wheel is very easy to move. So we're just going to spin the wheel as far as it'll go and go back the other way. And wow, look at this. You can see that clear line is now totally black, containing all of the old power steering fluid. This is awesome. Here you can see it's still in the line here, getting ready to enter the drain bucket. So this is working out perfectly. And don't forget to keep topping off your reservoir with fresh power steering fluid. Now that we have turned the wheel a few times and have some fluid in the drain pan, we're going to top off the reservoir with our brand new fluid, dump some in. But remember not to overflow it because you don't want to get power steering fluid everywhere. Just put in enough. Okay, that first pour was about half of a quart. And we've cranked the wheel, so we're going to pour more power steering fluid in there. You can now see the fruits of our efforts. This drain pan is full of old nasty fluid, and you can see that same old fluid running through this line. If I pull the line out here just where the fluid is turning nice and brand new, and you can see by looking right there, we are finished. The fluid in the line is brand new fluid. So there is no more dark, disgusting old fluid in the system. It's all been replaced with brand new synthetic fluid. We can now take off this clear line and put everything back together the way it was. Okay, we are done. We've topped it off and we've checked the levels. And that level seems to be exactly where it needs to be, right on the cold mark. All right, guys, we have finished the job. The only thing left to do now is to start it up and make sure that it sounds good. Wow. Sounds really good. And we have no weird noises from the engine. Of course, this is our power steering pump, and it sounds great. You can see just what we started with. This fluid looks like black coffee, but you can see what we ended up with. This fluid looks great. Look at the difference there. You have the new fluid on the left and the old fluid on the right. What a transformation. All right, guys, well, the job is officially done. Let's go over what we did. First, we needed to jack up the car and get those wheels off the ground. Once we did that, the steering wheel was really easy to turn from lock to lock without the engine running. After that, we disconnected our return line from the reservoir and then plugged into that our clear drain line, which led right into the drain bucket. We also plugged off that nipple coming from the reservoir so it didn't leak out. And then once everything was set up, we just simply cranked the wheel from left to right, lock to lock, and that pumped all the old fluid out. We kept adding in new fluid until we saw the new fluid in that clear line. Once we saw that new fluid in the clear line, we knew the job was done, and we put everything back together the way it was. I hope this video helped you learn how to do a full power steering system fluid flush. Whether you have rack and pinion or not, you can do it without the engine running, and it's very easy. I would say this job takes no more than an hour. Make sure you're taking the proper safety precautions and being safe with your jack and jack stands. All right, guys, for more information, please look down in the description below this video. Make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. My name is Jimmy, this is One Road, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.